welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you.
I was saying in the introduction to your episode, it's like, man, there's so much more I wanted to talk to you about. So you're back.
So then the first thing I presented you with was wanting you to talk more.
Yeah. All right. So go ahead. Ask your question.
Okay. So I had a question before we were starting about, as I was thinking about our conversation after last time we talked, I kind of thought that we never really defined what like you felt were characteristics that made like a good food scene. What defined a good food scene? Like oftentimes, like maybe, I mean, you even expressed this yourself that you're critical of this area, like quite a bit, right?
Yeah.
But I was curious what elements you're actually looking for that like to complete or like make a good food scene to the point where maybe you were less critical or like you felt something was fulfilled.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I don't have like a hard like list that I've ever created of what I would consider, but I will say, I think it involves a lot of different things. On the top end, it involves multiple restaurants that are pushing the norm. So, okay. and whether that's like white tablecloth and like St. Urban, I feel like I need to I'm going to go there and spend $500 or $600 on dinner for two, but I'm also going to sit down and see something that I'm not seeing anywhere else in Syracuse, or I'm getting to try different ingredients, aspects of food that I can't try anywhere else in that town, in that city. I think there's that. So it could be like white tablecloth, even though, I won't jump off track. So whether it's white tablecloth at the high end or it's a place like Eden where I feel like I could come and dress like this, but still have an incredibly elevated experience, where I'm not, I don't know if I'm necessarily Eden, I'm trying ingredients that I've never had before, because I don't think you guys are like really shipping in caviar and doing a lot of truffle work, but you're also using so many hyper local ingredients that there's probably stuff that I just don't know exists in central New York, right?
It's interesting that you mentioned that aspect of us, because and while you say there's nothing that's like surprising or like that like jumps out to you as like terribly unique as far outside of like standard like American cuisine dining or whatever. The one thing that I thought maybe we would be talking about is like my experience, because you were captivated by the fact that was my first restaurant that I worked at. Yeah. The one thing that has been the best part of my experience with that place is actually being forced to use a lot of things, hyper local things, that honestly I would never have exposed myself to on a regular basis, because like I don't like anise type flavor that much, so like I'm never gonna touch fennel. Yeah, like in my own personal life. Okay, but that's something that we can get this time of year, etc. Right. So like I'm forced to engage this ingredient that I wouldn't normally engage. But I also find that there are ways to like prepare it that I can actually enjoy still. Right. Different ways to like express the ingredient that are like enjoyable to me, even though my initial perspective is that I wouldn't like that. Not that to derail the conversation.
No, not
about you answering. Like,
I was just thinking like, I mean, imagine giving a chef, or imagine giving someone flour, water, salt, yeast, and let's just say butter.
Yep.
Imagine giving somebody those 5 ingredients. Like, to a certain extent, what you could create with those 5 ingredients is limitless. Yeah. And I think given to specific people, they're going to create, very specific things. Somebody might look at those 5 ingredients and be like, wow, I could make so many different things. I could make a croissant, I could make a pizza, I could make a bread, I could, any, whatever.
Just look at the history of food across the entire world, and you see the manifestation of those ingredients in the different various ways that people found to use them. Yeah. Like, and in different cases, like maybe because they had various different crops, like in Eastern cuisine, we see more rice flour based things. And then the more west you move, you start seeing wheat, et cetera. But they're still doing the same things, like with those elements where they're, incorporating water to like a milled something. Right. And creating a network and capturing gas. Yeah, exactly. Like, now we have bread, now we have noodles, pasta, et cetera. Like, they decided more Eastern to manifest that into the form of dumplings, where Italy, they're capturing is now pasta. It's a filled pasta, but essentially they're the same exact thing,
right?
Just different expressions of the same ingredients.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it really is. It is funny as you kind of dive into that stuff how it all really is identical.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think that's what the further down the hole you go with cooking, you start to discover how similar everything is. Mm-hmm. I'm a huge advocate for not using recipes.
Okay.
Recipes are great as an SOP to create, recreate something in the same way every time, etc. They have their uses, but I think they're both equally damaging and the best thing ever for learning cooking. Mm-hmm. Because if you're starting to learn cooking, you don't know what you don't know, so you don't know where to start, right? That's with anything you pursue. And recipes give you a good avenue of being you have the tools, do this. And then it's at least giving you the ability to do the thing, because doing the thing is the best way to learn the thing. Yeah. And it gives you a recipe to do that. So then you start doing more and more recipes and whatever, and maybe you're not learning techniques, but those techniques are incorporated into the instructions. You just don't know what those techniques are. Yeah. And then you start to then realize the connecting thread of wow, okay, every dish that I've done that's like this, it always says to start with onion, celery, carrots, whatever, and then you eventually learn that it's those are aromatics and those are flavor bases, and that's how you start building flavors in a dish. And then that rabbit hole goes a little deeper, and you're okay, well, apparently there's flavor bases based on region. We're okay, if we're doing French cooking, we have mirepoix. If we're, in Spanish cooking, or we have the sofrito, not to be mistaken with the Italian sofrito, and then if we start going more east, that's various elements of that start getting taken out, and now we're incorporating ginger and garlic more, and maybe green onions instead of onion. Yeah. But you start noticing the common threads through doing these recipes and whatever. But then I think some people can get stuck in, I can only cook with a recipe, and not taking out the lessons from what the instructions are actually telling you and teaching you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I was just thinking I bought, or I actually, somebody gave me the Gosney pizza book that they came out with, and I was going through that, and I was making a pizza dough, and it called for the mixer, which I hate using the mixer on pizza dough, but following the instructions exactly how they're laid out, it was awful. The amount of time, I found that with pretty much every pizza dough that I've ever made, when the instructions say to go to your mixer, if it's so odd, me following the exact time, it's I'm way overworking this dough.
Yeah. Or you're picking it apart and you just feel it.
Yeah.
Just shred.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, but as I'm sitting there, I'm looking at it in the mixer, I'm feeling, I know this isn't right, but I'm going to follow the instructions exactly how they say. And it never works out,
Do you, so you've been diving into pizza, right, a lot lately. I'm trying to recall pictures I've seen you post. You're doing pan pizzas, kind of grandma style, or? Yeah,
so I was doing, just because I didn't want to make a mess in the house, and I don't really, during COVID, I was doing a New York-esque style of a pizza with a baking steel in the oven that I'd preheat for an hour.
Yeah.
And during COVID, they were pretty good. I got there, they were solid. Just, we have a small kitchen, and it's an incredible mess.
Your oven cap out at 500.
Yeah. So, I found I forget what the surface temp was of the steel. It was 650 or something like that if I let it really go and just rip. But so I was doing it on that, and they were okay. But then I started to get eating Peels on Wheels, Detroit style. I was really interested in Detroit.
Yeah.
So I started looking into that, bought a couple pans, and then that led to buying a grandma pan. And your home oven is the perfect thing for a pan pizza, really. Yeah. To a certain extent, but especially with Detroit, it's perfect because you par bake it.
Yep.
If you're doing it well, you're par baking it, and so I can do that in the morning before I leave the house, and then let it sit, and then when I come home, 15 minutes later, I have the pizza ready. So I was getting into that, but then Luis from, I always say Luis, I think it's Luis. Luis from Peels on Wheels he posted on Instagram his stories. He was selling his rock box inventory. He had like 6 rock boxes from when he first got started.
Yep.
And so I was like, hell yeah, I'm going to buy that. It was like $250 propane. So like part of me is still, I joked like maybe I'm going to bronze this oven and keep it for a museum of his later on in life. But I bought it and took it home and I started making that. So I've made like 4 pizzas, 2 dough batches with it. And that's been fun.
Have you been just following a single recipe, or have you been kind of exploring with like various doughs, I guess?
With that, I've just made 1 so far,
okay.
2. So I almost jumped in. I went and bought some 00, and I almost jumped in to try and do a Neapolitan. I was like, let's wait. Let's pump the brakes on that. Yeah. So I decided to go with like more of a forgiving, New York style dough that would be a little drier, not as high hydration, easier to work with, I figured. So
no flop, 1 bite.
Yeah. It's just that. So the first one I did, and I just let it proof on the counter for like 6 hours. And I got to say, that pizza was good.
Yeah.
I like same day, 6 hour, room temperature. It developed. It was a really solid pizza. And then the rest of it, I cold fermented for 72 hours.
Yes.
And that was still really good. It just obviously, takes forever. I did, but the recipe that I used, because I wanted to just like follow Gosney's recipe that they had for this dough like thoroughly and just see what happened. And it called for too much. It was like six doughs, and it's just me and my wife and our 2-year-old, right? So that's like, 2 pizzas. One of them I let sit for like a week in the fridge and just to see what would happen.
Yeah.
And that was really interesting.
I got to say, there's a lot of people that when you're looking up like information about pizza or whatever, they're like, don't, 2 days is the magic spot. Don't go any further than 4 to 6 days or whatever. And I think that's nonsense. Absolutely. I've rode a couple doughs for like a week to 2 weeks plus. And like, obviously you have to reshape them or whatever. Yeah. Once they start getting like pretty old, they start melting almost, But some of the best doughs that I've like made so far were week fermented.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. It's what style of pie are you making when you do that?
I've been doing Neapolitans. That's what I started with. Mostly because I didn't want to do a dough with oil. I like to hand mix, so I wasn't going to be trying a lot of New York style crust where they like to work it with like ice and stuff, and I don't want to do that with hand.
Yeah.
Basically, a Neapolitan pizza dough is just a French baguette.
Yeah,
it's just like treated differently.
Yeah.
And we have these really fish tubs that we get our like fish in that happen to be the same as like the proofing bins like for like pizza trays and stuff. And like in our area we have like quite a few good people that do like Neapolitan. So like I've spent time watching them, etc. So I had like that baseline of knowledge when I like started. But yeah, and we have a wood fire oven in our thing. So I was like, well, if I have access to this, I might as well like try to go for it, which turned out to be a huge pain in the ass because our oven has a little lip like halfway through the like mouth that makes it really hard to launch in Polak pizzas. And also the space on the inside is so small that like after we build our fire on the inside, there's not much room to actually get a pizza in.
Gotcha.
Even if I was temping something like suggested is between 800 to 1,000 degrees, I have personally found that like low 700s to like 800 in our oven like works best. So it's so close to the fire that I have to keep constant rotation, and it's actually like the heat is so much higher on that end.
I was wondering how that thing is fired. If I wasn't sure if it was fired from the bottom.
Yeah, no, we actually that's where we store all of our coals and everything at night.
Gotcha.
So then we can just pull it back out and restart our fires with the coals there. But then like we can just leave a base there and then throw in some wood and basically restart our fire like every night there.
That's cool.
But because we had the pizza oven, that's why I decided to go to the Neapolitan route. It's also my favorite style of pizza.
Is it?
Yeah, oh yeah. I love
like
it. A lot of people hate on it, but
yeah, like a true Neapolitan or like a Like you said, a few people around town do a Neapolitan, and I only know of one. The only one that I know of that's like a true. I've never been to Naples, so I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Here. All right, but the only one that I know of is Via Napoli. Like, because he has that typical Neapolitan, really puffy crust, really soft, pillowy texture.
Okay, I'll amend that to saying Neapolitan pizzas.
Yeah,
and like the same like preparation style, but maybe not the same complete execution from start to finish and final product.
Yeah,
but like,
and that's like what,
like a pizza. Yeah. Yeah. So, what was the place in down by Malt that like they had trouble like paying their employees or whatever?
There was Peppino's that was down there for a couple of years. He's been gone since I think just after or before COVID. And he had I don't know if it was wood or gas fired, but I know he had some sort of a pizza oven, dome shaped oven in there. Yeah, he's a prick though.
Sure.
Yeah, John's a prick.
The appeal to me with Neapolitan though is that I like I kind of like the concept of like fork and knife pizza. Mm-hmm. It kind of like opens up the palate a little bit more as far as like different ingredients you're allowed to explore and whatever. Like I like a classic margarita like a lot, and that's where I like started to try to execute just because I was more concerned with learning the technique of pizza making and the flavors and stuff I felt I could deal with later. Mm-hmm. So I just kept it simple doing like margaritas. I could actually learn how to execute a pizza. Yeah. And then that just sent me down a rabbit hole of like, I don't like we have activated charcoal around, so I was like trying that with like the pizza dough and everything, and recreating any dish that we had on the menu as a pizza.
Oh,
so
that's
like
cool.
Mushroom toast pizza was like a really good one and stuff. That one we just trying to like utilize ingredients that we have around a restaurant.
Yeah,
because
that's cool.
Rich is like really cool with me like messing around and like exploring things and whatever. But we don't ever like usually like bring in extra ingredients or something for me to like explore something. So it's like, what can I do with what we have? Mushroom toast pizza was amazing. We have a bechamel that we keep around for our fish basically. So I use that as the base of the sauce. The bacon mushrooms mix that we use for our mushroom toast. And then instead of using a poached egg, I cracked a whole egg in the center, similar to how a pizza does, as they have an add-on option with that, and then finished with arugula. And this was where it strayed a little bit from the mushroom toast, but balsamic and arugula like finish. It was so good, so good. Yeah, but I have in my recipe book that I have at work, the whole back of the book is just turning into a mess of like Scotch tape with various like dough, like percentages and everything.
That's funny.
It's been really fun.
So what do you make? What flour do you use for the doughs? Since you're doing Neapolitan, are you using 00? Are you using kind of a blend?
We have a special blend that it's similar to all-purpose, but it's a little finer from King Arthur.
Okay.
And then I've been doing different mixes of that with semolina in the dough itself. And then recently, Rich actually brought in some like flatbread flour for me from Anson Mills, which has been really cool, as well as some pasta flour from them that has been incredible.
Huh. What's the difference in like flatbread flour? Is it?
I don't honestly know. Okay. I think it's just like a finer grind. Yeah, I think it's like close to 00.
Gotcha.
Probably is 00. They just like needed to brand it themselves.
That's interesting.
And then I haven't tried to do pizza dough with the pasta flour. I'm kind of scared too. After making pasta for the first time with it and seeing how it reacted to the water, I don't know if it would make it really good.
Yeah.
It turned almost to like Play-Doh.
Oh, really?
Like almost immediately, which fantastic for pasta.
Yeah. I was trying to find really high, like higher than the 13.9 that I can get from King Arthur bread flour.
Yeah.
Like trying to find a really high percentage.
How much protein can we get into this?
Yeah. for the specifically for the Detroit style that I was trying to make. And I found a bag of farmer ground flour, bread flour, and I got excited because I think they were like 14.2 or just like a little bit more. I'm sure there's really no difference. But then when I got it home, I realized it was like whole wheat bread flour. I was like, whatever, I'll just make a whole wheat pie. And following that, I was like, what the fuck? It was like a dense brick at the end of just following the exact same recipe. I was so shocked at how different those two flours were.
With Detroit style, are you basically, I've never made a Detroit style pizza. Are you basically making a focaccia and then making your pizza like on top of that?
Yeah, kind of, sort of. Now, I've never had it and I've never tasted this, but from all the videos that I've seen and interviews I've seen online, true Detroit style pizza from Buddy's, which is the originator, is like really soft texture, you know? So it almost like, imagine if you took a focaccia and then 2 days later, like microwaved it, you know? Wrapped in like plastic wrap. It just gets like really, really soft and kind of bouncy. It doesn't have that like crunch or snap that focaccia or some focaccias do. But all of Detroit's I've ever had have that like snap to it. They're not bouncy. And I don't know why that is. I don't know how Buddy's does it, if they bake raw or if they par bake. But anyway, so all the Detroits I've had and the Detroit I make have that snap. It's basically you're making focaccia. It's bread flour, you know, salt, water, yeast, oil, and that's it. I do like a 72-hour bulk ferment on it. I mean, I'm only making one at a time, but 72-hour ferment on it in the fridge, and then I take it out and reshape it and then put it in the pan and let it sit for a little bit just to relax. And then I start stretching it out in the pan with a lot of butter and oil in the pan. And then, not a lot of butter and oil. I basically just coat the inside of the pan with the butter and then put a little bit more oil down there. And then it takes like maybe 45 minutes to an hour to like fully get it stretched to the sides. And then I cover it and I let it sit for like 6 hours to rise up in the pan. Yeah. And then come home, oil it, and bake it, par bake it. And that's only like 6 minutes to par bake it, 6-7 minutes.
Nice.
Yeah. The challenge I'm having though on my Detroits is once I par bake it, it shrinks just a little bit in the pan. So then if I want to get that like typical Detroit style cheese crown around the edge, you can't, because you'd have to shove so much cheese down on the sides, which is good. And I've done that. And then
a pool of oil.
Yeah. You just get this like, all the cheese just like falls down around the sides. Yep. So then you have to put so much more to like try and build it back up.
Building this cheese pyramid.
Yeah, it's really, that was the challenging thing. But yeah, I do an experiment. I want to bring my pizza steel back inside because I have it outside for like a flat top on my Weber charcoal grill for smash burgers and stuff.
Nice.
And I want to bring it back inside and try the Detroit and the Grandma style with that. Because Luigi's in Park Slope makes, which is my favorite pizza in the whole state, makes this. He makes a round pie, a grandma, and a Sicilian. And his grandma, specifically, it's like it's kind of thick. The top is really airy and like, you know, pillowy for the texture of the dough. But then the bottom of it has this like perfectly crisped, like you could literally like the top of it, you could just like sleep on it
and then a cracker
and then it just breaks. And I don't know, I've never had a pizza where that's been the case. And I don't know how he does it.
That's for a pan pizza.
That's for a pan pizza. So I don't know if I have no idea how he does that.
Like my big world that I've been exploring recently is pre-ferments.
Okay.
It's like that has been a journey.
Yeah, sure.
So, I think I might actually just cheat a little bit and start going and trying sourdough.
Oh, yeah.
Because like it's basically the same thing. But like Polish I've like had pretty good success with because it's already like really active. Bigas, however, I have not successfully made a pizza with a Biga pre-ferment like at all.
I haven't tried either yet.
I've lit a bunch of flour on fire.
Really?
So, thank you, Rich, for that.
That's funny.
But yeah, there's so much. There's so much you can explore. With pizza, it's like it feels like it's never ending.
Right.
And
there is. I mean, you do have I feel like with pizza, you do have a lot of freedom. You know, to kind of like call whatever you want pizza. To a certain extent. Yeah.
I think the appeal to me with pizza too is that it's like one of the most like I don't have any intention of doing this anytime soon, but like it's one of the most accessible businesses to start right now. Like Gosney has made it like grossly approachable with those domes that they have. I have so many people that I follow. They basically have taken like horse trailers, slapped 2 Gosneys and painted it, and like now they have a business. And that's like super appealing to someone.
I mean, Lewis out in Rochester, he got started I think just before or just after the pandemic. And he just had 4 rock boxes. And he would roll up in the early days, pop open a table, put a tent up, and he had those 4 rock boxes right there. And that's how he got started, and then, then he graduated to like a little mobile, like Italian truck that had them in it. And then, his building, and now he bought his building. And
I remember when, like, Toss and Fire was just like a trailer at the market.
For sure.
And then like over the course of a year and a half, he just exploded. But
it's crazy to think that Nick went from, maxing out a credit card and getting that whole thing on like a pull behind, metal trailer to today he has 3 hard locations, 3 or 4 food trucks. And the cool thing I like about Nick, and I think I said this, I forget if it was the last time you were on or a different episode, but the thing I like about Nick is that I could run into him and sit down and as long as he's not busy right now, like the summer season, he's incredibly busy. But I could sit down and have like an hour plus conversation with him about pizza, and different styles and how they do it in different restaurants. And he's like, seeing when he opened up Harvey's and he was there all the time, to see him in there and like those first pies he was coming out with, I was like, these are incredible. But his passion and his like knowledge of different styles of pizza and all that kind of stuff, and still like 7-8 years doing it. I think he started the same year I did, so 8 years of doing this and being as successful as he is. I think I would be. I don't know, most people that I've met at that stage of their business, it's like surprising to see them still curious.
Engaged.
And he still seems pretty curious.
I would love that hour-long conversation.
But
it's been incredible to watch his growth. There's a pizza podcast that I listen to out in California by this guy, Alex Coons. It's called Pie to Pie. And Nick randomly popped up on it.
Oh, did he really?
2 months ago. Like, I guess he went to a convention and they ran into each other, and he was just firing off interviews with people there. And so like I never really knew Nick's story, full story as far as his business was concerned, until listening to that. It was really cool.
He was the Pizza Expo in Vegas. I want to go next year. I think my son will be old enough that maybe my wife will let. It's like the Restaurant Expo and the Pizza Expo happen at the exact same time in Vegas, so they overlap. And a lot of guys from Syracuse go out to one or both. And it always looks like a blast to be out there. Actually, there's like some crazy pizza box that's meant to be like really over the top in terms of the design, and then you open up the box and it's like a cutout for your head, so you can like take a picture with the pizza box. And Nick, I think, is rolling those out at the fair this year.
Oh, nice.
So that'd be kind of cool to see.
It's a great marketing.
Yeah, it really is. I forget the company that makes them, but I first saw them because people were posting about them at the Pizza Expo this past year.
Pizza's cool.
Pizza's
something I like right now.
I really enjoy it. I need to put another dough through the ringer and get it ready next week, for next week. But I've done 2 or 3 batches, 2 or 3 things I've cooked in the Gosney Rock Box so far. The challenge is it's 12 and a half inches wide and like 13 or 14 inches deep. But it's propane, but your flame is right there. In the back. So.
Is it the L shape, or is it just in the back and then it comes up?
Just in the back and comes up. So you have like this unit that pops in underneath on the bottom, and then the flame shoots up there.
Okay.
When I first got it and connected the propane, the little electric current that like sparks to get for the propane was like bent, and so when I didn't think to look at it before I lit it up. So I connect everything, turn it on, turn the the trigger, and nothing's happening. I'm like, what the fuck's going on? And I kept trying it. was like, maybe it's maybe like the propane just has to get through, even though the line is only like 3 feet.
Yeah, it's all refilled before you even push a button.
I'm like, maybe it's just going to take a while for the propane to get up there. So I let it sit for like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then I go back outside and I triggered it, and this huge ball of fire just went shooting out the front and then also out the back, like right by my face. So I was like terrified for like the next 2 times I went to light it. I kept like trying to find some sort of like a long stick to try to get it. And then I like thought to myself, maybe something's messed up back there. So I like pulled it off and bent it back, and now it works great.
That's awesome.
But it takes like 30 to 40 minutes to get up to 900. And then it's just as soon as you launch your pie, you basically have got like 5 seconds before you have to turn it.
Yep.
Or else you're burning that back section,
The scariest part to me always is when going for that first turn is whether or not the front half of the pizza has sealed.
Yeah.
Like the dough.
Yeah.
I've had so many where it's like, it's too hot in the oven. It's already burning the other side, and you go underneath the peel and it's just soft still.
I need to get a specific like pizza turner peel, because I just have the launcher. And so I feel like having the turning peel would make things a little bit easier in that regard. Because right now I have to like put it back in and just use my hand to like pull it back out. But it is interesting. But yeah, I mean, it's wild to think. I mean, my father has told me for years and years and years, the pizza business is the best money-making business, highest margins. And I think, somebody was telling me recently that they did the math, like a typical large pizza is costing like $3 to $4 to make today. So obviously, your margins though, like from even like talking to people and even just like knowing what food is going for today. Yeah. If like food suppliers can really fuck you over. And I know especially like Cisco and Renzi, maybe not Renzi, maybe US Foods, even though they're the same company, but like with Cisco, you'll get set on like whatever, $38 for a case of ranch. Let's just say that's what it is. And then you're there for like 3 or 4 orders. And then all of a sudden it's like $49 in the next invoice.
Yeah.
They don't say anything to you. They're just hoping that they can get by nothing happened. The price didn't change on ranch for anybody.
Yeah.
It just, they raised the price on something to try and get it. Or, maybe it's not ranch. Maybe it's like some other, small product where it's like, hey, let's try and double the price of it and see if they'll notice.
Something incidental, easy to miss.
Yeah. So, so that stuff happens all the time, but with like the big suppliers. But I mean, my dad's been said for years, open up a pizza shop, and
all the most successful like businesses in the area of Ohio that I came from all started as pizza places.
Pizza shops, yeah.
And then they went into catering, and then they went into like event space, and then like it's like all family run thing.
Right. I am curious how many places in town make their own dough. The one thing I found from a couple of the business owners that, pizza shop or pizza business owners in Syracuse that I've spoken to, there's like one in particular. I've found that like the biggest insult he can lay on another pizza business owner is, I heard they buy their dough. So, like anytime I talk to them, I'm like, oh, did you have their pizza? He's like, yeah, it's a fine, but I heard they buy their dough. They don't even make their own dough, bro. Yeah. And it's like, I don't know. I've seen a lot of bags of flour in their kitchen. So either those are props but it has led me to wonder. I'm curious how many people make their own dough in pizza shops in Syracuse, because there's some of these places, like, don't get me wrong, Pies Guys makes a great pie, and I'm guessing that they do make their own dough. But I walk into some of these shops and it's like, do you know what you're doing? Do you know how to make pizza dough?
You see a bunch of ovens, but no Hobart in the back. Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
I think if I ever did my own pizza thing, I'd be a psychopath and want to hand every single one.
Yeah.
But I have heard horror stories through that podcast, because all it is people talking about launching their businesses basically and what they did. And some people doing like 400 dough balls through like a non-commercial KitchenAid mixer, like 4 at a time, like for all night. But it's like, it's worth it. It's so much fun. That's the most fun part for me with pizza is exploring the dough.
Yeah, it is fun. It's the thing that's frustrating to me though is that you start it and you might have an idea of something to change, but you're not going to know what happens for 3 days.
Yep. Also, I mean, like, and so many things can be changed in just the smallest details of like, even when you're like, if you bench rested differently and like, what was the temperature then versus now, et cetera. Like, I've had a lot of doughs where like, okay, like I cold fermented this for like 3 days, so it should be pretty mellow. But when I was bench resting it, waiting for the day, it was like the air temperature was maybe like 100 degrees in the air. So like super exploded. So then it's like still tastes a little like yeasty. Or like I'll have one, like you were saying you did the day of 6 hours, but like you bench rested at a cooler temperature or whatever. So it was kind of like a cold ferment and like it was a little more mellow.
Yeah. Yeah. It is funny how those things affect it so much, affect the final thing. And just like, that's why, it's like, we've been doing like once a week, I'll do a pork loin on the Weber and nothing's ever going to change with that. Right. Like, you know how to make a fucking pork loin on a grill outside, and, put the probe in, wait till it gets to a temperature, baste it, char it, you're good.
And then that brings up the issue of working at Eden. Everything, like warring with the wood fire, like everything is changing at the same time. And we're like, you're constantly finding new uses for different areas of like the hearth. Just like, we do sides of mushrooms. And this is going to sound like crazy because it's like such a trivial small element of our menu, but like there are 5 to 6 different ways to approach like getting these mushrooms ready based on like just the timing of when the ticket is going to come and like fall, where like, because we have a box in the middle of our hearth where we can build fires and it kind of functions like an oven. And if like, we have like a 15-minute window for those mushrooms, like we can set it on the back and it cooks them like perfectly. Or if we need them to fire for service right now, we can like throw it like in the box to like cook it in like half the time. If we get the mushrooms prepared ahead of time, but we still have quite a bit of time for the ticket, we have an upper rack that we can basically use for dehydrating and stuff, but it also has a good like air temperature to like keep them at temperature while not cooking them. And like there's so many different like inconsistencies that you have to deal with on a regular basis that we were talking about last time, how like somebody with a lot of experience cooking can come in and look like a fool.
Yeah.
There's like learning the specificities of like the hearth itself and different ways to like use it. Just this week, Mike, the most amazing 22 now year old employee that I've ever experienced in my life, just learned like we usually charge our pans before starting our fish to like have a really hot surface to build a really nice crust. And we used to just order, like when the fish came in, we would throw the pan in the box to let it heat and then do the fish afterwards. He's been using now the vent of our pizza oven to keep pans charged like for that purpose. And so like, I mean, he's created an efficiency from like essentially, waste, like heat waste.
That's amazing. So is that something where it's like when you first started there, Rich was like, okay, here's how everything works. Like if you want, if you need to cook it in 7 minutes, put it up here. Or was this something that you just had to sit there and try and figure out?
It's something time? You figure out through destroying a lot of product like food. They always say that, when hiring new employees is like one of your biggest costs or whatever in any business. Cause you're accounting for training, et cetera. Like, same is true for Eden, but like times 2 because so much shit gets lit on fire like on a regular basis. To this day, like Rich, myself, Mike, all who are extremely experienced, like we still destroy stuff on a regular basis.
That's interesting.
Pan frying the halloumi, and like that can go from 0 to 100 in like no time. And we can go through half like case of cheese like on a regular basis, just burning off pieces like here and there.
That's crazy.
But no, it is definitely not something that is like actively discussed. It is discussed in a general sense of like you're going to need to learn to find heat and stuff and whatever, but like it's trial and error. And then like maybe one of us like discovers something like new and cool and we're like, hey, pro tip, they'll do this way or whatever. Or like,
that's pretty interesting.
Hey, we've been running into this issue when we're trying to dehydrate things. What are different ways that we can like approach it or whatever. But I feel like Mike and I are having like constant stupid discussions about like the most random trivial like details of like the hearth and how to approach cooking things in it and whatnot. This isn't like wood fired thing, but we just got a new convection burner that's like out of a sci-fi movie. And Rich was messing around with it on Saturday, and he was like, you can make a French omelet without ever touching it, basically. And then he's like, there's a recipe in here to do a hollandaise with, you don't have to like go through the process of making, you just throw the stuff in the pot and it'll like do it. And we're like, bullshit. And then it did.
Wow.
And he's like, I actually don't really like this. This feels uncomfortable.
That's pretty funny.
But it's a lot of failure in an attempt to get closer and closer to success.
Yeah. So when I was thinking, about steaks and just cooking in that sort of a environment, what's a common like method for making your steaks there? Is it similar to like a Peter Luger style where it's just like, cooked at 1200 degrees, hot and fast?
Yeah, it depends on the cut.
Yeah.
Typically with our like New York strip, which is always on the menu, just do that direct heat, direct fire on the Argentinian grill. But when we start getting into like the cuts that are like a little like thicker from top to bottom, like tenderloins or ribeyes, we usually will charge a pan to get a good sear like on it, oil it, salt it, etc. And then we will actually take it and put it in either our pizza oven or our box. The pizza oven is preferred because it has the air temperature is so high, it does a really good job of still caramelizing the outside while it's still cooking to the center. I know some places actually with their larger ribeyes, they will sous vide them and then finish them like in a pan.
Gotcha.
We start from raw.
Yeah.
Which in most cases should take forever, but because the pizza oven is close to like 1,000 degrees, they still cook pretty well, and we get an incredible crust on them. Things like like hangers or flanks and stuff that are a little thinner, or we'll do sometimes we'll keep it like rolled up on itself.
Okay.
Or skirt especially. Skirt, it's a super long, thin piece. You can't really cook it to a temperature that somebody wants.
Yeah.
So if we roll it on itself, we can actually get a nice char on the outside while still retaining like a medium rare type like cook.
That's cool.
But yeah, most of our special cuts are done in like a pizza oven or whatever because they're thicker.
Yeah. I really want to start making steaks in this rock box, the pizza oven I bought at home.
Yeah.
I've been watching a lot of videos of other people doing it. I'm just worried about the proximity to the flame and just making sure I don't overburn the fuck out of the thing.
I don't know if that's possible.
Really?
I think it's really, really hard to actually burn like a steak. I mean, there's even cook styles that are essentially burning a steak. Where you're, like,
for sure.
trying to go for like a Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
You're like slamming the outside with like fucking, like red cast iron.
Yeah. I do really love that bitter charred flavor on pretty much all meat.
Yeah.
I really don't care about like the use of it. If I have something that's charred and has that sort of like bitter ash flavor to it on a protein, I love it.
Yeah.
So, but I'm thinking like, all right, how do I really do this so I don't like just have a well done steak at the end of it?
Yeah. I mean, as long as you cut it thick enough, or your butcher does or whatever.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of like almost impossible.
Yeah.
To do that. I also found like common zeitgeist will say like around chicken is like usually like low and slow, whatever. But I have my own mini Eden in my backyard where I have like 2 charcoal grills with like the whole wood like set up and and I've really found that like high indirect heat with chicken is actually like insane.
Yeah.
Like awesome. You get like golden on the outside, and then you're still hitting temperatures long enough to where you can cook to the center.
Okay. I bought a Vortex for my Weber kettle. It's like that, cone. It's wide on the bottom, shallower up top. And then, you just essentially load all your charcoal right into the center of that. And then it's supposed to be great for specifically chicken wings on a Weber. And then you just layer your wings on the outside. And I've done that twice now at home. And They're perfect every time. As soon as they're up to temp, and then I baste them, and then I put them right over the coals just to like really get some charred bits on them.
Yeah.
And they're great. Have you been to this place, Congo Box?
They're actually on my drive home every time. I checked them out at the last, I think it was Taste.
Okay.
They were over by the bank.
Okay.
I think, I checked them out there. They're pretty decent.
Is it?
Yeah. They're just on the outskirts of Syracuse downtown by like Red House or whatever. I've seen them. It was like a bakery.
Yeah, it was
before. They're in that parking lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it was Eric's place, and Corey was the baker there for a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw that they're there on it's West Fayette. And I saw when it was like for the last 2 years, he was over by where San Miguel used to be on State Street. So, and I just haven't had time to go there and check it out. I really want to, because it seems like exactly what I would love. Like charred, meat cooked over charcoal and then charred up with like some lemon. Sounds fucking awesome to me. Give me some tortillas or some bread with it, and I'm golden.
Give me some acid to cut through this fat, and
so I want to go check it out. But that's what I would love. I'd love to see. I've seen it. I follow this business in New York City that does mostly festivals, but they just have one of those. I forget the official name. It's just one of those small rectangular metal boxes with a grill over it, grate over it, and then you put your charcoal in it. It's meant for like skewers and kebabs.
Yeah,
and they've got like this one that's like this long, as long as the table, but they just serve. You get like 5, 10, or 20 just little skewers of meat, and and that's it. That's all they sell, and it looks amazing.
I wish there were more non-gas.
Yeah,
like, I'm not like trying to be the person that's like preaching. Like, I'm part of a wood fire restaurant preaching the holy gospel of like cooking, but like the extra element that you get from
charcoal.
Yeah, charcoal, wood, whatever you're using. I love it.
So what's, I didn't finish answering, but what is your take on what makes a great dynamic food scene in a city?
Oh, I love it. I think, okay, this is going to be a convoluted answer, but I think an area can be good if it's hyper specific on something.
Okay.
Like, this is a terrible example, but it's fresh on my mind because videos you've been recently doing is like, Rochester is not known for food. I mean, it is a little bit, right?
Yeah.
But like, one of its biggest claims to fame is a garbage plate. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
And like, as an outsider, when I think of like Rochester, I think of garbage plates. I don't think of like extravagant food scene or whatever.
For sure.
When I think of like maybe like India or whatever, like it's good for various reasons, and different areas are good for different reasons. Like they have a good cultural cuisine, etc., steeped in history and whatever. But like their street food scene is also insane. It's almost memeable because of how like disgustingly gross it is. But like it's good for that reason. And like New York City. Like, yes, they have really high-end food or whatever, but, like, also they're really known for, like, New York Slice.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Or, like, Katz's Deli or something. Like, really great sandwiches that are, like, rooted in maybe, like, Jewish tradition that came up, et cetera. Like, and I think as long as an area has a defining quality, like, there are, like, good things, like, about that area, I don't think Syracuse really has, like, something that, like, defines it. Right, as like it doesn't have anything specific. Like, when you think of Syracuse, you don't think of like, oh, they have really good street food, which because they have terrible zoning for street food. Like you have like 4 spots that are in the center that are allowed to be used, and then like everything else is like on the outskirts. Yeah, which is like terrible for like that model. Like pizza wise, like it's very medium. Yeah, like. It's not defined by anything. It has like almost Neapolitans, like in some areas, Neapolitans, whatever. But the one thing that I think that this area does really well at, and I think isn't spoken about because it's so hyper specific to various markets, is I think we do really good, like authentic non-American food, but they're all like hole in the wall restaurants.
Yeah.
And so they're not celebrated a lot because the overall dining experience, which is like what people want to pay for, like they want to experience a space to celebrate and like, you know, like feel comfortable and be wowed. And also the food needs to be amazing and the cocktail menu needs to be amazing and they want the full experience. But like, there's still places like, you know, and this place gets a lot of credit anyways, but like Eva's where like, you know, non-American, but like what they execute is very well. I have a Korean restaurant that I really like, Chorong House, that's like, family lives upstairs. The restaurant is like like off the side of a glorified like home kitchen and whatever. But like they put out an amazing product. You got the aunties in the corner like gossiping about you because you're the one white guy like in the restaurant.
Is that the one in East Fayette?
It's by by Old Chengdu. They're like 100 yards apart.
Yeah. I haven't been to there. I was going to go there with Tim from Buried Acorn, whose wife and her family are Korean. And because he was like, that's the only like good Korean restaurant in Syracuse. And they were closed that day. So we went to Old Chengdu and I fell in love with Old Chengdu. I was like, holy cow, this is amazing. I've only been there a couple of times. I'm pretty sure they charge me more because I'm white. I don't know, but because it is expensive.
Good.
But
pay your white tax.
Yeah, but it is really, really good. I love it there. The pork and I was just going through a list of like, making a list of like 52 of the favorite foods or restaurants I've been to, and I'm contemplating this idea of next year, each week of the year being dedicated to a restaurant, and so I would go into that restaurant and then post 5 pieces of content throughout the week all about that restaurant.
That'd be awesome.
And then move on to the next one the next week.
Yeah.
But anyways, and so as I was making the list, their pork intestine dish on Old Chengdu's menu is absolutely phenomenal. I loved it so much.
So I feel like there's a lot of places like that, like around here, but like they don't get media marketing or anything. And I think a lot of areas have that. Yeah. But I think that's one of the best things about this area.
Yeah. It's
just not Western. You know, I'm not saying like those specific places, but like anything within that realm. Right. It's not like, you know, it's not Dunkin' Donuts. So it's
yeah, exactly. I agree with you. I mean, I think for a vibrant, for a quality food scene, you know, at the top you have to have like a couple of higher end restaurants who are in whatever ethnicity or type of cuisine they're making. You know, whether that's whether that was like someone like St. Urban that was, I think, at the top of the game of Syracuse and arguably the top of. That was probably the highest end restaurant that's ever existed to my knowledge in the city of Syracuse. But, you know, French style to a certain extent and just putting out incredible food and like things that I know nothing about. But every time I go in there, I'm wowed. And then again, another higher end restaurant, I would put, obviously Eden in that category, complete opposite end of St. Urban, but still in a higher end category. I think it needs to have... I think a healthy, vibrant, quality food scene also has to have a number of, refugee, ethnic, sort of. They don't have to be a hole in the wall, but they have to be authentic to themselves and their cuisine style restaurants, whatever that may be. You know, I think of like I've never been to any of these places, but I'm assuming New Century is pretty accurate. To Vietnamese pho and, some of their other dishes. I'd like to think Old Chengdu is pretty authentic to Chinese foods. So spots like that, Ethiopia, whatever that Ethiopian restaurant is over on State Street that was like, so I think we need to have stuff like that. I think it also needs to have people like Mojo's and like Birria Queso Tacos when she first started out, where it's like, hey, this is illegal. I'm doing it out of my kitchen, but it's incredible food. Yeah. Sort of a thing. I don't know if they're illegal, but, it's like we're...
Guerrilla kitchen.
Right. Like we're bootstrapping it, but we're making great food. Yep. I think a good food scene also does have to have like your solid, shitty bar. It has to have like your change of pace, your shifties, where like you probably like, yes, if you go to change a pace at night, somebody's going to try and sell you Xanax or, or blow or whatever the hell they have.
A thing.
But you're also going to get really cheap beer for really cheap, and you're going to get really great, nasty fried food hopefully they change the oil once every week,
Maybe.
Sort of a place. So I think you have to have all of that. You also have to have your shitty diner. You have to have your diner where you go in and the food really isn't good. It's like, in other words, it's not like pushing the boundaries on what a scrambled egg could be.
Right.
But it is a scrambled egg, and it comes with a side of bacon and fries and toast for $6 or $7 and crappy coffee,
Yeah.
So it has to have that. It has to have Tully's.
But bottomless coffee.
Yeah. It has to have a Tully's. It has to have, like, in other words, just some...
The local glorified Applebee's.
Right. Some cookie cutter, boxed, listen, our thing is this sort of a place. Like, families can go there. Yeah. You've got to have a number of pizza shops. You got to have a number of wing shops. You need to have some good Mexican in there. Like, I think that, like, in my head, a well-rounded... food scene is what's preferred.
Okay.
I mean, if you go to, when I'm in Rochester has 30-ish, maybe it's 40. I don't know the exact number, but Rochester has a healthy amount of incredible restaurants that are pushing boundaries, and, they're not St. Urban level, but they're on those same levels of like Alto Cinco, and I'm trying to think who else in town, like, where it's not like the level of, and, I would maybe Eden, Alto Cinco, where like they're doing shit. They're not just buying everything and just, reheating it, so to speak. But they're actually doing cool shit. They've got a great cocktail program. There's a good nightlife. So, like there's a lot of restaurants like that. But then there's also Nick Tahoe, there's also Bill Gray's, like just a family friendly, ground round, which is a Rochester burger with meat sauce on it, right?
Burger with burger. Nice.
Right, I mean, there's just so many different, like Rochester is a really, in my opinion, has a healthy food scene. You've got people like, Luis from Peels on Wheels, Pizza Wizard, like incredible craft pizzas out there, but it's pizza.
Yeah.
And then you've got places like Wildflower, where every pasta, every bread, every pizza, everything, their gelatos, everything is made from scratch every single day. It's a tiny, small little place that's open at 11 a.m. and it's like blows 99.9% of Syracuse out of the water in terms of its quality. And, it's just go there quick and, walk up and order at the counter type of a place.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I mean, going to Rochester and like even Buffalo, although I don't have Rochester. I have a lot of like information from being there so often over the year. Buffalo, I don't have as much information from because I'm not there as often. But Syracuse is far from a good food scene.
I think it has a lot of the elements that you described,
Syracuse?
just not in the quantity. Yeah, just not in the quantity. That would be nice. Which then makes it feel like there's nothing really novel, because it's like, well, I can only go to these three places so many times before I'm like a little burnt out, right?
Yeah.
But like Syracuse, while it seems big, like to me, since I've moved here, it feels really small.
Yeah, it's very small.
So I don't know what my expectation would be as far as like what quantity of things should exist in this area. But
there is a lot more. Like you mentioned, like Syracuse, like regional foods or like foods that are ours. And, the only things that like Syracuse proper has is salt potatoes. But you can't even
Speedies.
Right. But that's Binghamton.
Yeah.
Salt potatoes, but who's the salt potato restaurant in Syracuse?
What do you mean? It's like how you cook potatoes, but just with more salt.
It's a boiled boiled round white potato with a lot of butter and a lot of salt. But if I was going to say, Derek, where do I go in Syracuse to get salt potatoes? Where are you going?
Oh, nowhere.
There is
State Fair in August,
right? But like there isn't any place where it's like, oh yeah, we make really great, or hey, we focus on or whatever, not focus, but like we have salt potatoes. So
I do think we have a really good diner scene though. Like maybe they're not all the best.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about diners, but like,
right.
As far as diversity is concerned, as far as like places that exist and choices to like go through,
yeah,
like you could do half a year of content just on like the diners in this area.
I mean, you've got Market Diner, you've got Stella's, you've got
the Gem, Finally Ours,
you've got Garden View, you've got Mother's Cupboard.
Oh yeah, in Liverpool, Garden View, right?
Yeah. I think you still have that rail line one. Which one? Who?
Mother's Cupboard.
Mother's Cupboard.
I love them, and Finally Ours. I love mostly for their front of the house is insane.
Okay.
As far as how they turn tables and how they handle their service, etc. I have some gripes with their breakfast garbage plate. But
they have a breakfast garbage plate?
They have a breakfast garbage plate.
Wow.
I think it could be plated differently, and it should be plated differently. But
okay,
what's on it? Okay, it's chicken fried steak, sausage gravy, biscuits, hash brown, and I 3 eggs, I believe, cooked to your preference. But the way that it is plated is hash browns on bottom, which then steams them, eggs on top of the hash browns, chicken fried steak, gravy.
That's stupid.
So no matter what way you cook your eggs, they're always going to be over well by the time you actually get to them.
Right.
And then the hash browns are always steamed.
Yeah.
They have a chicken fried steak plate that has all the same things, but does not have biscuits, and you get a bread choice instead. Everything is plated separately and amazing. So, like, if you want to get the garbage plate there, you should probably get the chicken fried steak.
Yeah. Because that should be layered chicken fried steak. I would probably go biscuits next, and then gravy, and then hash browns, and then eggs, and then a little more gravy.
I don't know if you can stack anything, though. Because if you put... Okay, so you put the... This is the kind of stuff I like to talk about, but like probably weird for other people.
I think it's interesting.
Okay, so if you put the chicken fried steak on the bottom, you have a fried something that you are now covering in water, essentially, making it completely soggy. So you can't put that on top or bottom of anything. You can't put the potatoes on top or bottom of anything because you're killing the crust.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, putting the gravy on top of the chicken fried steak is fine, but like, I feel like everything has to be compartmentalized to the sides of like plate in some way.
Really, I would just cut the chicken fried steak up into bites before I plated it. I'd probably put the whole thing in a bowl. I would layer the biscuits in the bottom so it soaks everything up.
Yeah.
And then I would put like, I would go like biscuits, chicken fried steak on one side, probably the hash browns or potatoes on like the other half of that bowl, eggs on top, and then gravy is how I would do it. Or maybe gravy and then eggs on top of the gravy.
I would probably base with gravy, crown with the hash browns on the top, chicken fried steak on top of the gravy, eggs on top of the chicken fried steak. Biscuits on the side.
Yeah. It's not really a garbage plate. I'm sure that's their name, but that's not really a garbage plate.
I appreciate the attempt at recreating that like style and everything, but those elements, like, I don't feel like they can be stacked that way.
I am going to go out to Rochester at some point, probably later this fall, early winter, or next year, and do a garbage plate tour of some sort. Try and get locals to take me to like their favorites and do like a 6 or 7 or 8 video series on it. And I'd also love to do the same thing in Buffalo with wings. But, but like, so Syracuse, we have salt potatoes. We do have Syracuse-style pizza, which is a thing. So Syracuse...
I've never heard of that in my life. I'm also not a native to Syracuse, though. So.
Yeah. I had only heard about it like 4 years ago. Syracuse-style pizza is... Twin Treats is mimicked after it. So it is a thicker cut... It's a thicker dough. It's not thick crust, but it's not thin either. It's like somewhere between, a Buffalo style pizza and a New York style pizza. It is cut in strips. It has the cheese blend on top as a combination of like mozzarella, locatelli, and I think it's provolone. And then it is cooked well. so it's got like a dark brown crisp to it. That is a true Syracuse style pizza created by Shuffles Palermo and his pizzeria over on the west side back in the day, Shuffles Pizzeria. And I think they're cooked on screens in a deck oven. But anyways, I forget if he sold or if one of the guys from Twin Trees worked at Shuffles and took the recipe or borrowed it or tweaked it or whatever the case is. But Twin Trees is the closest that we have to it today. Yeah. And I've been told that Charlie Roman over at Daniela's still has the original pizza recipe and that he will make it if you ask for it. Yeah. But I've never been able to get in contact with him to try and coordinate that.
I hate strip cuts.
Do you?
I hate it so much.
I like it.
Mostly I hate it because of the two little sliver pieces that you get at each end.
Yeah, for sure.
The first time I got a pizza when I lived here early on, and it came that way, and I was like, what the hell is it? I had already not really liked Syracuse that much when I first moved here, and I got that, and I was like, that's the final straw. Yeah. I can't deal with this place anymore.
I mean, I think I like them. I mean, I don't want them all the time, but I do like it when I get it. Yeah.
You can't even fold it on itself to support itself. I hate it. I'm also a person that's really everything in its place, or whatever, and it's not even at all. It drives me insane.
It's the perfect pizza for dipping in blue cheese or ranch or something.
In the cups. Yeah, that makes sense.
I was just out in Buffalo on Friday for the day and did their upstate Eats Trail, and then went to a couple other restaurants. And some of the things I'm really surprised, some of the things that I just find interesting are Ken's blue cheese cups. It's instead of Ken's blue cheese, it's Ken's Buffalo blue cheese. So Buffalo has their own version of Ken's blue cheese that's made for Buffalo, and at least the three pizza shops or wing shops that I went to, they all do Ken's. Nobody those three didn't make their own blue cheese, which I thought was also interesting. But have you ever had Buffalo style pizza?
Yeah.
So it's good. I went to Bocce Club, which is known as kind of the originator. I don't know if they're known as the originator, but they're known as the oldest current Buffalo style pizza, and it was okay. Tons of cheese, no crust, right? It's edge to edge on everything. Cup and char pepperoni, should be cooked well done, but it's just it's like the casserole of pizzas, sort of.
Yeah.
It's not as bad, obviously, as a deep dish. It's far from that, but just a floppy, mess.
Yeah.
And it's a huge, huge pizza.
Not intended for fork and knife, but you should probably fork and knife it.
Yeah. And then we went to the guy, I hired this cameraman for the day to come with me, and he was he's like, we should go to Picasso's Pizza. They've got 5 or 6 locations. And I think no, it's not, no connection, but Picasso's Pizza, it's cooked it's still thick cut, thick crust, just like that. A lot of cheese, but 3 times the amount of the cup and char pepperoni, a sweeter sauce. All of them, all Buffalo has sweeter sauce. But then they have their Italian magic, they say they sprinkle. It's oregano, basil, Parmesan cheese, and red chili flakes that get dusted on the top. And that was really good. Not as messy, but still everything about a Buffalo style pizza that you like.
Yeah. Or
that you want to see. But just being in Buffalo, all of the 5 restaurants I went to, it's they created this, they created that, they created this, and they were I went to all these originators of the food, and just thinking through was okay, so they've got that, Rochester has its stuff, Syracuse doesn't have anything, we have those 2, but it's not with the exception of Twin Trees for Syracuse style pizza, we've got salt potatoes, and then we just borrow everybody else's stuff.
I'm always so speculative of the people that are this is the original place where this happened or whatever. Yeah. Just 9 times out of 10 it's some Italian guy bullshitting, because his grandfather before him and his grandfather before him, you go to Philly, you got 2 places across the street from each other, we're the original Philly cheesesteak or whatever. Yeah. And it's no idea is original. Every idea is always stolen.
For sure.
You did this way differently 30 years ago, and now suddenly it's its own thing.
Yeah.
The whole slogan of it's a Utica thing, I want to punch myself in the face every time I hear it or see it. You added chili flakes to rigatoni, and now it's a dish. Now it's its own thing.
Chicken riggies are, it's a Utica thing. It's not the originator of any of it, but as far as I know, but chicken riggies are a unique dish.
Is it?
Yeah, it's if you go, depends on where you go. So I will say, if you're in Rome, where they're from, I think it's Rome. I don't think it's Utica, but Teddy's in Rome, especially. There's like olives in it. You know, I mean, it's different than just like spicy vodka sauce with chicken and rigatoni.
I mean, it's just like it's a better baked ziti, right? Like, I mean, you lived in Ohio, right? There's literally a fried chicken baked ziti like Italian restaurant on every street corner. And like when I came here and I saw people like talking about chicken riggies, that's the first thing I could think about, and I was like, it's just spicy baked ziti. But they're like this regional claim to this dish, and like you can't open an Italian restaurant without like putting that on your menu around here. You'll get chastised.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, Amano was the one, I think,
and good for them for that because it's ridiculous. Like
that's hilarious.
The regional expectation that you have to have chicken riggies on your menu.
That's funny
because it's Italian, and yet we're claiming it to a regional specificity of Utica.
I know,
but like it has to be part of your Italian restaurant.
Yeah. Yeah, I know it is very interesting. It's I should do some sort of like a best chicken riggies series in Syracuse.
You should not do that. Don't.
That's funny.
Cater to them.
Well, Derek, thanks for coming back on, man.
It was really awesome.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Everybody go check out Eden Restaurant in downtown Syracuse.